Sword in the Stone. Chapter 1. King Uther. Long ago, in England, a wise and just king named King Uther ruled the land. Times were good and the people lived well. King Uther called for Merlin the magician, the most famous wizard in the land, to come to court. Merlin could see into the future, and that is how he knew the good days were not going to last. But of such news, King Uther and Queen Guinevere knew nothing, especially when they welcomed a child of their own into the world, a sweet baby boy. At a castle party for the royal birth, Merlin the magician asked the king to step aside for a word. Said the magician, "Sire, there is something you must know. Soon a great darkness will fall over this land. Your child is in great danger. Allow me to take the baby far away. I will be sure to keep him safe." "Merlin," said the king in surprise, "you are a great magician, and you are my friend too. But there is no way we would let anyone take away our child." Sadly, soon after the child's birth, the queen died. Not long after that, King Uther was killed in battle. That very night, Merlin swept into the castle and took the child. The next morning, the royal nurse went into the nursery and to her alarm found an empty crib. In fear, she, the nobles, and all the servants searched everywhere. But the baby was gone. With no king or baby heir, there was no leader or heir to sit on the throne. Darkness fell over the land. Without a leader, no one was setting the laws or settling disputes. Men of high rank fought each other to be the king. Robbers and bands of wild men ruled the streets of London. Evil men broke into houses and took what they wanted. Travellers on the roads were jumped and robbed. The people of England lived in fear. Far away from the city in a quiet place lived a good knight, Sir Ector, with his 2 sons. His first son was named Garth and the younger son Arthur, but everyone called him Wart. Wart was an orphan and had been adopted as a baby by Sir Ector. Years before, a stranger had come to Sir Ector with a baby and asked if Sir Ector would raise the child. The old knight took the baby in his arms, glad for a second child. He named the baby Arthur and raised him as his own. Wart was like a younger brother to Garth. Even though Wart wasn't a knight or of noble birth, he was kind-hearted and eager to learn. Chapter 2. A Stranger No More. When Arthur was 10 years old, the same stranger returned to Sir Ector's home. The stranger could read and write. He was a very wise and powerful wizard, but he was also a bit strange. He knew many things about the past, present, and future, and he often used his magic to teach Arthur important lessons, so Sir Ector hired him to teach his 2 sons. Garth could not sit still for lessons, and he stopped coming. But Arthur listened with wide eyes and learned everything. I bet you guessed by now who was that stranger. None other than Merlin the magician himself. At the end of each day, when Arthur finished his chores, it was time for lessons. Merlin would sit with Arthur for hours on end and teach him about the world. Arthur was a thin lad, not strong like his big brother Garth. Merlin said not to worry about that. What mattered most was a strong heart inside. Merlin didn't teach like a normal teacher. Instead of reading books and writing, Merlin turned Wart into a different animal. He turned him into a fish, a bird, and even a badger. He could see that the boy's heart was strong indeed. Each time, Wart learned valuable lessons about leadership, courage, and wisdom. For example, as a fish, he learned about power and how it should be used wisely. As a bird, he learned about freedom and fairness. These lessons were very important for Wart's future. By the time Arthur was 16, his brother Garth had become a knight and was now called Sir Garth. Arthur was eager to serve his big brother as squire. With great concern, he took care of his big brother's battle garments and spears. Meanwhile, something strange was happening in the kingdom. The king had died without leaving an heir, and nobody knew who should be the next king. One day, at lesson time, Merlin stood up and turned from the lad. "What is it?" said Arthur. "I need to leave you now," said Merlin. Chapter 3. The Sword in the Stone. That night, when the night was at its darkest, Merlin went to London's Market Square. He stood in the middle of the square, holding both arms high, and he pointed his wand to the stars. The next morning at dawn, when people started to arrive at the market, they discovered something odd. A white marble block stood in the centre of the market square, and upon it was a large stone. What's more, embedded on top of the stone was a golden sword, with its top half shining in the sun and the other half buried deep into the rock. None of this marvel had been there the day before. Even more curious were these words etched on the blade. "Whoever pulls out this sword from this stone is the true King of England." As you can imagine, word spread quickly about the message and the strange sword in the stone. Men flocked from far and wide to jump up to the white marble block and give the sword a yank. Each one tried, but the sword stuck fast. It would not move. One said in the gloom, "There is no man alive who could pull this sword out of the stone." "We'll see about that," said a voice in the crowd. The Duke of Cornwall, dressed in silks and ribbons, stepped up to the white marble block. "Hear ye," he said. "I call for a tournament to be held 1 month from today for the strongest, finest knights in all of England. There will be contests, prizes, and a grand feast for all. The winner is sure to be strong enough to pull the sword from the stone," said the Duchess. "Good idea, my dear. We will have a king again, at last." The people danced and cheered. News of the tournament travelled fast. From castle to village, to every far corner of the land, the news spread until at last, word got to the faraway home of Sir Ector. Sir Garth heard the news when he was polishing his helmet. "Arthur," he called out. Arthur was in the woods, feeding birds from his hand. He set down a pile of seeds for the birds and another for the squirrels, then ran fast to see his brother. "There you are," said Garth. "There's a tournament in London. We must set out at once." Arthur couldn't be more delighted. He had never been more than a few miles from home. He resolved to be the best squire ever for his brother. The lad ran back into the house. In the courtyard, his father, Sir Ector, was getting the horses ready. Sir Ector and his sons rode through London on their way to the tournament. Riding through the market square, something shiny glinted in the sun. "That sword looks like it goes right into the stone," said Arthur. "But how can that be? That's impossible." Strangely, guards were standing all around it. But why? The father and his 2 sons reached the tournament. The young knight Sir Garth ran to get in line to register. His father Sir Ector greeted many old friends, dukes, earls, barons, counts and countesses. Arthur sat in their tent, polishing his brother's helmet till it shone bright. A bugle sounded. The tournament was about to begin. Garth realised he had forgotten his sword at the inn. He told Arthur to go back and get it. Arthur ran back quickly but found that the inn was locked. He searched through the bag of armour and weapons. How could he let such a thing happen? Then he had an idea. Chapter 4. The Market Square. Very fast, Arthur hopped on their horse and rode back to the market square. The guards were not there anymore. They must have all gone to watch the tournament. Desperate to find a sword for Garth, he spotted it on the marble block. Let's see if the sword can get unstuck. He didn't know its importance. He just thought it would be a good sword for his brother. He walked up to the stone, grabbed the sword, and, to his surprise, easily pulled it out. "Hey, it's looser than I thought," he said. Arthur tucked the sword under his chest and raced to where his brother was waiting. When he brought the sword back, he handed the sword to his brother. Sir Ector and Garth were surprised. They realised what had happened. The father asked him, "How is it that you came by this sword?" "Bit nervous, I'm sorry," said Arthur. "Father, I'll put it right back, I promise. I only meant to borrow it when I pulled it from the stone." "You must take us to where you found this sword, Arthur," said the father. "At once." The 3 of them rushed over to the market square. They couldn't believe that Arthur had pulled the famous sword from the stone. Chapter 5. Now it's back. Arthur climbed onto the marble block. "It came from here," he said. He lifted the sword over his head. Then he dropped the blade back into the stone. "Now it's back in the stone. Everything's all right now, isn't it?" "Hey," said Sir Garth, "I still need a sword." He jumped up onto the marble block and grabbed the hilt of the sword. He pulled and pulled, but it didn't move. Garth shouted to Arthur, "What did you do to it?" "Nothing," said the lad. "You must have done something," cried Sir Garth. "Hush, both of you," said the father. "It's better if no one sees or hears us." But it was too late. A crowd had already started to gather. "Hey, did you pull that sword out of the stone?" called one villager. "Yes," said Arthur, "I did." "Do it again?" called another. "Yes, let's see it." "Let's see you do it." "Show us." Arthur put his hands around the golden handle. With one tug, the blade slid out. "Who are you?" called another voice. "What's your name?" "Arthur," said the lad. "Wait a minute, put that sword back." A tall knight pushed forward from the crowd. "Anyone can pull it out, once it's already been pulled." "Go ahead, put it back, son," said a voice. It was the Duke of Cornwall, the one who had called for the tournament. "All right," said Arthur. He slipped the blade back into the stone with ease. "Let me at it now," said Duke. He jumped up and grabbed the handle of the sword. But pull and tug as he might, the sword would not move. Not a bit. Another knight tried, then another. None could move the sword. Some waited, thinking the longer they waited, surely the sword would loosen and they would have a better chance. But when each man took his turn, the sword did not budge. "Let the lad try now," said the Duke of Cornwall. "Arthur, go ahead." Arthur stepped up to the stone again. In one motion he freed the blade. This time he held the sword high above his head. The blade flashed in the sun. Amazed, the crowd did not know what to think. Sir Ector and others in the crowd knelt before Arthur, recognizing him as the true king. Arthur was shocked and confused. He didn't want to be king. He just wanted to help Garth. One voice called out, "Our new king." "That kid?" called another voice from the crowd. "That skinny boy to rule over us?" "No way!" shouted another voice. "Stop!" shouted a commanding voice. All eyes turned around. It was Merlin the magician. He explained everything. "I know this boy. I know his heart. No one in England has a heart bigger and stronger than his. The sword has told us that this young man is to be the next king of England, and there is something else you must know." The crowd hushed. "This lad," said Merlin, pointing to Arthur, "is the true child of King Uther. He is the missing baby." He told Arthur that it was his destiny to be king, and that all the lessons he learned through magic had prepared him for this moment. Even though Arthur was just a young boy, he had the wisdom, kindness, and courage to be a great ruler. Cheers began to ring out. "Hail, King Arthur!" called a voice. "All hail, our new king!" Sir Ector fell to his knees, then Sir Garth. One person after another fell to their knees. All cheered. At last, a king had been chosen. A fresh young king and a new day for England. Arthur accepted his destiny and became King Arthur. He would go on to build the Round Table, gather loyal knights, and lead the kingdom to greatness. Merlin stayed by his side, guiding him and helping him grow into a wise and just king. I hope you enjoyed the adventure of the sword in the stone. Let us not forget the lesson we learn. This story teaches us that true leadership is not about strength or birthright. It's about wisdom, kindness, courage, and the willingness to learn, not just power. Even someone who seems ordinary can achieve great things with the right heart and mind. As young Arthur proved, even the most unexpected person can become a great leader. If you like this story, make sure to hit the like button and share it with others who enjoy learning English through stories. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss another exciting tale. Join us next time for more stories full of lessons, adventure, and fun. Keep learning, keep growing, and let's unlock more magical stories together. Thank you, and see you on the next video up here.